News you need live.
Good afternoon. Me, Graham Duffy. I was hoping I was going to be joined by Dave Smith, but I don't think he's going to be here, so I may be on my own here. But I'm going to look back at the games from the weekend and obviously the game from today. And I will also look at the England-Scotland Six Nations game yesterday. A fantastic victory for Scotland by 29 points to 23 at Twickenham to give us a back-to-back wins. Absolutely fantastic. Obviously, the games yesterday, there was quite a lot of goals. The rundown of the scores was Aberdeen 3, Motherwell 1, Hearts 3, Dundee United 1, Livingston 3, Kilmarnock 1, Rangers 2, Ross County 1, St Mirren 0, Hibernian 1, and the game that kicked off at 12 o'clock this afternoon was St Johnstone 1, Celtic 4. And that's the game I'm going to start with. Obviously, Celtic were in the end very, very comfortable. St Johnstone, I thought, tried to get about Celtic a little bit. You could see what Callum Davidson's plan was. And I think any manager that plays Celtic or Rangers, and especially at home, the first thing you say when you set your team out is don't concede early, stay in the game for as long as you can. And Celtic ended up going 2-0 up after 21 minutes. The first goal, and let's be honest, Andy Considine did not have a great game today. It's a really good bit of play by Jota, really good link-up play. He puts the ball in the box. It is aiming for Kyogo, but Considine gets in the way and puts it past the goalkeeper to give Celtic a great start after 13 minutes. Again, I thought the setup for St Johnstone was decent. I thought they did try to have a go at Celtic, but Celtic, they've got so much quality, as we talk about on the show. They are just such a relentless side, and that word that, Ange Postecoglou says about we don't stop. And Celtic didn't stop because after 21 minutes, they were 2-0 up. Again, it's really good play by Celtic and a really good finish again by Kyogo, who is looking sharper and sharper every game now. You kind of think at that point, 21 minutes gone, Celtic have got this game wrapped up. They probably could go and score 4, 5, maybe 6 again. But to St Johnstone's credit and to Callum Davidson's credit, they didn't lie down. They got back in the game. A fantastic finish from Dre Wright. He picks that ball up 25 yards out on his right foot. It's a very, very good finish past Joe Hart. A really good goal. And you're thinking, St Johnstone, could they get something out of this? And again, to be fair to St Johnstone, they did try and put pressure on. They kind of tried to bombard the Celtic defence with balls into the box, but Carter Vickers dealt with it. Starfelt dealt with it. Joe Hart came and took a couple of crosses. But you never really felt at that stage St Johnstone were out the game. I thought St Johnstone battled really, really well. But the quality Celtic have got, you know what can happen. And again, it's a really good goal that Aaron Moy scores. He started to score quite a few goals now for Celtic. It's a great little flick over the top by Jota, who I thought was excellent today. Really, really impressive. And a really good ball over the top. Aaron Moy times his run, stays onside, and it's a really good little dink over the goalkeeper. Again, I think some of the decisions today for VAR took far too long. That took at least a couple of minutes to sort that out. You could see pretty early on that it wasn't offside, so I don't think that should have taken as long as it did. I don't really want to talk about VAR because it does my head in, but it was a good finish from Aaron Moy. And then at that point, you think, yeah, this game's won now. Going at half-time, 3-1 up, second half. Be honest, there wasn't a lot in the game second half. St Johnstone again battled hard, didn't really create a lot of problems. Celtic were always very comfortable. There was always a raft of changes there normally is in these kind of games when you're 3-1 up. And you kind of think Celtic are now happy, 3-1. There's no real pressure. You don't want to pick up any injuries. St Johnstone, they know the game's done. But Celtic do add a fourth. And on the back of that, Andy Considine gets sent off for a pullback on O. It is a red card, and it kind of summed up Andy Considine's day. He didn't have a particularly great game, unfortunately for him. It's one of these games, you write it off, you move on to the next game. He gets sent off. The free kick gets given. You think there's a few players that probably could take this. In the end, it's David Turnbull that takes it, strikes it low, hard, a really, really good goal. Again, there's a VAR check for offside that took far, far too long again. But the decision was right in the end. It wasn't offside. It was given as a goal. And yeah, Celtic, very, very impressive again. As kind of they normally do, very dominant possession-wise. I think the stats were very much in Celtic's favour, as you'd expect. They just don't show any signs of letting up. You know, today, I don't think it was ever going to be a game that Celtic were going to lose. But I thought St Johnstone tried to compete as best as they can, but they just, as many teams in Scotland have, they just don't have the quality to compete with a Celtic side. And Celtic all over the park have got so much ability, so much quality. And they can bring on guys like Haksabanovic, they can bring on you know, they've got guys like James Forrest on the bench. They've got Lila Bada, who, again, is such a massive threat on that right-hand side. Jota, again, who I said earlier on, I think he's a very, very gifted footballer. He's one of these guys that I think if I'm a Celtic fan, he'd get me on the edge of my seat every time I watch him. You just think when the ball goes to him, he's going to do something. He's going to create something. He can drop the shoulder. He can beat people. He can go either way. And he's a creative player. And it's great to watch, even as a neutral, watching a guy like that. So, yeah, Celtic were very, very comfortable. I think in terms of St Johnstone, their season would never be defined by these kind of games today. They're sitting in 8th position. I think they've done okay. You know, I think they will probably not finish in the top 6, if I'm going to be honest. I think they will be in and around that kind of 7th, 8th place. But I think today they did try to compete. They did try to show something. But when you're up against quality like Celtic have got, you can't afford to make mistakes. And unfortunately, St Johnstone and Andy Considine in particular made far too many mistakes. And you get punished at this level. You know, no disrespect, but if you're against a team like maybe Dundee United or Motherwell, you might get away with that, but you're not going to get off with those kind of mistakes against Celtic, and that just showed today. Celtic were ruthless. The second half, I'll be honest, it wasn't a particularly great watch because Celtic didn't need to go and score. St Johnstone didn't look like they had the quality really to go and press Celtic, so it was a very difficult afternoon for St Johnstone in the second half, but you know, St Johnstone will be fine. I don't think they'll be in relegation trouble. I think they'll be absolutely fine this season. Probably, if I'm going to stick my neck in the line, I think they'll probably finish about 8th. I don't think they'll finish any higher than that, but I might be wrong. In terms of Celtic, you know, they get 4 goals, job done, back again to 9 points clear. Postecoglou, I know, will be, I think he was asked a question about the title race and they obviously didn't want to answer it. I think he knows the title's done as well. He's not going to come out and say it, but I think he knows the title's done. Rangers won yesterday. We'll get to that very shortly. I don't think they were particularly great. Celtic, for me, still look very, very strong. I still think they win the league quite comfortably. Today wasn't really a massive test, and now we've got the break for the Scottish Cup next week. I think Celtic have got a home game again, which you'd expect them to win. I think it's against Morton. I might have to check that, actually. But yeah, Celtic going to the back of a break now for the league in a very comfortable position. Very, very comfortable position. They're not going to lose this, I don't think. No matter how many games Rangers win, Celtic will win the league quite comfortably. And today wasn't really a massive test for them. The St Johnstone pitch was cutting up a little bit. I don't know if that's understandable or not with the weather we've been having. But Celtic regained their 9-point lead. Very, very comfortable victory. And a very important 3 points for them. In terms of the games yesterday, I'll go on to Aberdeen against Motherwell because that was probably the biggest game of the day in terms of the fact that Aberdeen, we all know, have been pretty dreadful. Motherwell, who haven't won in 11 league games, and that was going to show. I think going into this game, I actually did think Aberdeen will win this game just because Motherwell have been so poor. And Aberdeen under Barry Robson just now, and I heard yesterday, listened to one of the BBC sports programmes, I heard John Hughes was throwing his name into the hat for the Aberdeen job. I personally don't think that would be a good appointment. I don't think John Hughes he's a decent manager, but is he what Aberdeen really needs? I don't think so. I just think Aberdeen need better than John Hughes. And I think they will probably get that as well. I don't think Barry Robson will get the job full time. But you never know. If Aberdeen can pick up some results, pick up some performances, maybe Barry Robson could be in with a shout. I don't think he will be, but you never know what Dave Commott's going to do. He has to get this next point right. But yesterday, I thought Aberdeen were much, much better. I thought they started with a much better tempo, much better purpose about them. They probably should have been 2 or 3 goals up before they actually did get the goal. There's some decent passages of play. The opening goal does come after 42 minutes. Great play by Johnny Hayes on the right-hand side. Skins his man. Really good cross to the back post. And Duke, who for me has been Aberdeen's best player this season by an absolute mile. He's been very, very impressive. He's actually quite good in the air for someone that's not massive. But he gets up really well, heads it in. Really good goal. Motherwell defensively were just all over the place. And the 2 goals that Majowski scores will show that as well. Motherwell didn't really offer a lot in that first half. Aberdeen were the dominant side. And I think the one thing that you see about Aberdeen yesterday that you probably haven't seen under Jim Goodwin, and I don't know if that says more about Jim Goodwin than it says about the players, but there seems to be a bit more of a work rate, a bit more energy about Aberdeen under Barry Robson. I don't know why that is. I think maybe, and if Dave was on, he maybe could tell me this, but I just think that maybe those Aberdeen players didn't really like Jim Goodwin. Now, I know I heard Jim Goodwin before he got sacked. And I think I've cut Aberdeen players to say they were behind the manager. Well, from my side looking in, that didn't look the case to me. I thought those Aberdeen players down tools. A bit like what I'm seeing at Liverpool just now. As a Liverpool fan, I think a lot of those Liverpool players have down tools under Jurgen Klopp, which I never want to see. But Aberdeen did look a lot better yesterday, more resilient, and they looked like they were up for this. Maybe it's because it was Motherwell. And no disrespect to any Motherwell fans that are watching, but Motherwell are in such a poor place just now. But the second goal that Motherwell lose is so poor. Their midfielder gets caught on the ball by Ramadani. He drives forward. It's a really good pass into Majowski, but again, it's poor defending from Motherwell. And Majowski, it's a lovely little finish. Really good finish. And Majowski, who probably has been off form recently, maybe looked a bit off the pace a little bit. He's back in goal scoring form again. Really good finish as well. Lovely little finish past the goalkeeper. His second goal is actually even better. It's a really good move, really good build-up. And the ball from Leighton Clarkson into Majowski in the box is a fantastic pass. Lovely little ball inside. And it's a great little flick from Majowski past the keeper. Really good goal. And Aberdeen are 3-0 up, and, they deserved it. They should have been probably 4 or 5 up, to be honest. They thoroughly deserved that. Really good performance from Aberdeen. The only kind of downside for Aberdeen is the penalty they give away. And it was a penalty. It is a handball. You can see that he's got his hand out. It is definitely a handball. And Kevin Van Veen, who probably hasn't been in his best form recently for Motherwell, and Motherwell need him to score goals because without him, they don't have a lot else. But he managed to score, but the game's done. 50 minutes to go. You're 3-1 down. It never looked likely they were going to get a comeback. I think for Aberdeen, it's a massive victory. They needed to win that game at home. And what I will say as well, fair play to Aberdeen fans, because on the back of what's been a horrendous run recently, they could have easily not turned up at Pittodrie yesterday, but they did. They were out there in numbers, backing their team, and that's great. We all know that Aberdeen are a big club. We all know that they've got a massive support. And I thought they got right behind the team yesterday in a game that they needed to, because had they lost that, I dread to think what Aberdeen fans have been thinking. But it's a massive 3 points for them. Obviously, they don't have a game next week because it's the Scottish Cup, and they obviously got knocked out by Darvel. So they'll have a bit of a break now, and maybe Barry Robson now has a chance to work with the players in the next week or so, the next couple of weeks in the build-up to their next game. He'll have a chance to kind of assess his squad, see, obviously, the transfer window's shut, but they have signed players in January. And that's the other thing as well that I did wonder, is they did sign quite a few players in the January transfer window. Now, who signed them? Because I don't think Barry Robson would have been given much chance to sign those players. Was it him? Was it somebody behind the scenes? Was it Dave Cormack? I mean, you're not really going to give... Are you going to give an interim manager a chance to go and sign players when you're probably not going to be in the job? I do find that a bit of a strange one. But listen, Aberdeen are a massive club, and I do think they will bounce back. They're too good a team not to. They are at the moment sitting in 7th position. I don't know if they'll finish in the top 4. They are, they are only a few points off Livingston. So, they could, but they need to get a run together. And that's the thing. If they can get a run of wins and get that confidence up, then you never know what can happen. But I think the sooner they get a new manager in, the better. There has been talk about a Poland manager coming in. I don't know if he'll get that job or not. There are other people out there that maybe could take the job. I heard Neil Lennon's name getting mentioned. Would Neil Lennon take that job? I don't honestly know if he would. There are other managers out of jobs just now that, could step into that job and do a decent job. But I just think Aberdeen need a bit of stability. They need to get a manager in there that's gonna have Aberdeen playing the way that they want to, which is on the front foot, pressing teams, especially at home. Then their away record, we all know, has been horrendous. Their away record is very, very poor, but at Pittodrie, they can make that place a fortress. So I think any manager coming in has got to kind of pick his best players and pick players that look like they want to be at Aberdeen. Now, I'm not going to say which ones I don't think want to be there, but just yesterday was such a massive win for Aberdeen. It took a bit of pressure off. And if any Aberdeen fans are watching this, who would you want as your new manager? Would you be happy with Neil Lennon? Or do you want somebody better? Do you want somebody a bit left field? But what I would say, and I said this earlier on, Dave Cormack has to get this right because his last two appointments have failed miserably. Stephen Glass was an absolute disaster. Stephen Glass was a good player for Aberdeen, but good players don't necessarily make good managers. And that kind of showed. Stephen Glass looked out of his depth. I think for me, if Stephen Glass was going to be a manager, I think you start at lower league and work your way up. I don't think you should have got that job straight away. And it's the same with Hearts. Ian Cathro should never have got the Hearts job. He should have worked his way up, but that's one of these things. Jim Goodwin, I thought at the time, was a really good appointment. I thought he would do very well for Aberdeen because he'd done such a great job when he was at Alloa. He did a great job at St Mirren. So I thought that was a kind of a natural progression, and I thought he would do a very good job at Aberdeen, but it didn't work. And the weeks that they had, getting hammered by Hearts, getting beat by Darvel, getting hammered by Hibs, it was just horrendous. Such a poor run of results. And ultimately, those Aberdeen players, I think, and I don't know if I'm out of turn here, but I think a lot of those Aberdeen players down tools. And it was almost like that 6-0 game against Hibs, it was almost like the players were like, well, we're going to lose this anyway. We'll just get the manager sacked, which is a horrendous thing to be thinking. And a horrendous thing to be doing. You might not like a manager, but you've got paying customers that are going to watch that from Aberdeen. They've travelled a long, long way to Edinburgh to watch that game, looking for a reaction from the Darvel and Hearts games, and you putting a performance like that, it's nowhere near good enough. And I think they're cheating themselves, they're cheating the fans, and they're cheating the manager as well. But fair play to Barry Robson. I thought he got a lot out of the Aberdeen team yesterday. I thought it looked a lot better. Duke is such a catalyst for that Aberdeen team. Leighton Clarkson, I spoke about before. I really do like Leighton Clarkson. I've seen a lot of Aberdeen fans and stuff on Twitter saying, he's not good enough. He thinks he's better than he is. I personally don't agree. I've seen Clarkson a few times. He's a very, very good footballer. If you give him the ball, he is capable of creating, as he showed with the Majowski goal yesterday, the third goal. He can get on the ball and make things happen, but he needs players around him to be doing more of the kind of donkey work like Ramadani did yesterday. But Ramadani was really good. But it's a massive, massive victory for Aberdeen. And, that'll give them a lot of confidence. I think they needed that. I think they need to now, as I said, go on a run of results. And if they can pick up some results, I'm just actually trying to have a look at what their next fixtures are, Aberdeen. Obviously, they don't have a game next week, we've just spoken about. But Aberdeen's next few games, and listen, there's no easy games in the Scottish Premier League, but their next few games, so they play Celtic at Celtic Park on the 18th of February. They then play Livingston at home on the 25th of February. They play Dundee United away on the 4th of March. They then got a home game against Hearts on the 18th of March, and they then play St Johnstone on the 1st of April. Now, looking at that, it's not the best run of fixtures. Celtic away, we all know Aberdeen's record away from home is not great, so you're probably thinking they're not going to pick up many points there. Livingston at home, that could be a huge game for Aberdeen. 3 o'clock kickoff on the 25th of February, that could be massive. Livingston are on a really good run just now. They, for me, look like the team that is going to be competing with Hearts for that third place. Never thought I'd be saying that, but that's a massive game. Dundee United away. Again, Aberdeen last time they went to Tannadice got beat 4-0. So that's a huge, huge game. Hearts at home. I would reckon that Pittodrie is not great, so Aberdeen might have a decent chance there. And when Hearts last went to Pittodrie, we got beat 2-0. So That's a difficult game. And then St Johnstone away. As I keep on saying, my worry for Aberdeen would be that away record. I just think that this is going to be huge for Aberdeen. They have to pick up results. I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll be. I know a few folk have said, "Oh, Aberdeen could be relegated." They're not going to be relegated. That's not going to happen. They'll be fine. They'll be top 6. I've got absolutely no doubt about that. But they've got to pick up results. And your next game is at Celtic Park. I hate to say this, Aberdeen fans, but I think you could be into an absolute hammer in there. So that's not going to be a place where you're going to picking up points. But if we go into Motherwell, again, Motherwell, it's not really working for Stephen Hamill. Now, I know that he has spoken about the fact that he's not the one that makes the decisions if he's going to get sacked or not. I don't think Stephen Hamill is going to walk away. I think he's a very proud man. I think he loves the club. We all know that. But he, again, like Aberdeen, he needs to get results. Yesterday was a very, very poor day. The defending was dreadful. They didn't really offer much going forward, and that's been a thing that I've worried about for Motherwell for a while. Apart from Van Veen, they don't have anyone that's going to score goals. I know they made a couple of signings in January. They signed Jack Aitchison and they signed James Furlong. For me, that was never enough. They needed to strengthen that forward area. They lost Connor Shields, who I don't think Shields is particularly great striker, but he has a bit of pace about him. He can get in behind. So they lost him and they didn't really replace him. So Motherwell are in a really bad place just now. They're now with 11 without a win. And they just look devoid of confidence. They look devoid of ideas. I mean, I've said before that a few weeks ago, I said that I worry for Kilmarnock and I thought Kilmarnock could go down. I am now very worried about Motherwell. They look very vulnerable. They are lacking confidence. They can't score goals. They are not defending well enough. So they look a very, very poor side just now. And I don't know what Stevie Hamill does to get the best out of that team. He's going to have to change something. But those players, again, I don't think they're down in tools for Stevie Hamill. You know, again, Graham Alexander failed at Motherwell. They brought in Stevie Hamill, which at the time when Hamill got that job, I generally wasn't convinced about that. I thought we needed somebody a bit more experienced, a bit more safe hands. But, you know, Alan Burrow's not appointed Stevie Hamill, Motherwell legend. And I talk about this quite a lot, but when a manager comes in, a lot of folk talk about this new manager bounce. I've never really believed in that new manager bounce. I don't think it really works. Maybe at times it can, but I think you're very, very capable of losing 4 or 5 games in the bounce. Stevie Hamill's not winning games, and the pressure will be on him. Again, I'm going to look at Motherwell's next few fixtures. Motherwell are in Scottish Cup action, obviously, next weekend. But if I look at Motherwell's fixtures, I probably should have been more organised, but I didn't know I was going to be my own tonight. So I am trying to do this the best I can. So Motherwell next week. Now, this for me is a potential, maybe it's not. This for me is a potential shock because next week, Motherwell go to Raith Rovers in the Scottish Cup. Now, Starks Park is a very difficult place to go. The pitch was cutting up very bad the last time I've seen it. Raith Rovers are a decent side in the Championship. So would this be a massive shock if Motherwell got beat? I don't think it would be. When Motherwell played Arbroath in the Scottish Cup a couple of weeks ago, a lot of folk, myself included, thought that Arbroath might have a chance in that. But fair play to Motherwell. You know, that was a good victory. Difficult pitch, difficult circumstances. Mikkel Mandron scored 2 on his debut. That was a big win. Raith Rovers will be a very difficult test. I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Motherwell lost that game. I mean, if they lose that, I think Hamill could be under massive, massive pressure. After that, their next games, they play St Mirren in the league at home on the 15th of February. They then play Hearts, which is on Sky Sports. That's the 19th of February. That's a Sunday with a 12 o'clock kickoff. They then play Kilmarnock away on the 25th of February. They play Ross County away on the 4th of March. And they play Rangers at home on the 8th of March. So again, very difficult fixtures for them. They've got to start picking up results and they've got to start picking them up shortly because you look at that league table, Motherwell are second bottom and the only second bottom on goal difference to Dundee United, who I will get onto shortly. Dundee United look like they've got something about them. Motherwell, for me, don't. I'm not seeing anything on that side that I think, do you know what? They'll be fine this season. They've got more than enough to stay up. I'm not seeing it from Motherwell. I don't see the midfield looks very, very poor. I think defensively they're very vulnerable, as showed with the goals yesterday. If I look at that Motherwell team yesterday, so I mean up front, you look at Motherwell's strikers. They had Jack Aitchison and Jonathan Obika. Again, they're not bad players, but they're not really going to score you a lot of goals, to be honest. I think they are. Me and Michael spoke about this before, and probably Dave as well. The fact that Motherwell are so reliant on Kevin Van Veen to score goals. Now, yesterday was a penalty, but they need him to score goals, or they don't score enough goals. The midfield, James Furlong made his debut. They had Sean Goss, Blair Spittle, Cornelius, and Johnston. It's not the greatest of midfield. There's not a lot of power in there. There's nobody that's going to really get on the ball and dominate a game. So that, for me, is where Motherwell needed to sign in January, as well as up front. Defensively, Paul McGinn, Ricky Lammy, and Stephen O'Donnell. They went to 3 at the back yesterday, and it didn't work. You know, they were overrun quite comfortably yesterday by Aberdeen. So Motherwell have got massive issues. And I genuinely think that they are probably going to go down. And I hate saying this, but I just think they look in real trouble just now. There's nothing about them that I think they've got enough to stay up. I might be wrong. You never know. I've been wrong before plenty of times. But yeah, I look at that Motherwell team and I just don't see what they're going to do, to be honest. If I look at the other games from yesterday, I will go to Tynecastle. Sorry, let me drink here. Hearts beat Dundee United by 3-1. A massive 3 points over Eilson, who needed a reaction after that Rangers game on Wednesday, which was, I'll be honest, absolutely dreadful. We were very, very poor. We needed a reaction, and first half we didn't get one. Dundee United scored first, Stephen Fletcher, with a really good finish after 9 minutes. And I'll be honest here, United should have been at 2 or 3 up. I thought they were the far better side in that first half. We did not get going at all. I speak about this quite a lot as the fact that Hearts don't tend to start games very well. And I speak about this a lot, that we need to start games better. We need to start, especially at home. I want to see start on the front foot. Now, after that disastrous performance in the result against Rangers on Wednesday, I expect us to come out with a crowd behind us, play on the front foot, get right after Dundee United. Didn't happen. United got into the game very comfortably. Kai Rowles, who I've been a massive, massive fan of for Hearts, has been excellent, but he gets done by Stephen Fletcher for the first goal. It's good movement by Fletcher across the front post and a really good finish. But Kai Rowles has got to do better there. And you know, there's people that players love scoring against certain teams. Alfredo Morelos loves scoring against Hearts. Stephen Fletcher loves scoring against Hearts. I think he scored in every game this season against us. And he gave us a really tough time. And United deserve to be ahead. They should have been 4 or 5 up in that first half. Xander Clark made a couple of really good saves, a couple of really good blocks on the line as well by Rowles and Civic. But the first half, we never got going. Mark Birighitti could have gone and sat in the stand, the United keeper, because he had nothing to do. And then the game changes. And the game changes in 29 minutes when Ryan Edwards gets sent off for a sending off that went to VAR. So him and Andy Halliday are going for the ball. Ryan Edwards gets to the ball and he wins the ball, but his challenge catches Andy Halliday. Now, at first, Nick Walsh, who I don't think is a particularly great referee in the first place, I think he's very arrogant. I think he's too full of himself. I don't think he handles games particularly well. He didn't actually give a free kick at first. He didn't give anything for that. He basically waved play on. And then a few minutes later, he goes and looks at VAR. And VAR tells him, you need to go and look at that because that's a dangerous challenge. Now, what I will say is, I've had a few debates about this in my own head and with a few folk on Twitter as well. If that's a red card for the challenge, then why is Ryan Jack against St Johnstone not a red card? Because it's very, very similar. So when you slow anything down, it can look a lot worse. At the time, I didn't think it was a red card watching it. When you slow it down, it does look a lot worse. He is over the top, but he does win the ball, and it's a follow-through that catches Andy Halliday. When you run it on faster, it doesn't look like there's too much in it. But again, when you slow anything down, it looks a lot worse. And that it was a dangerous challenge. But again, how is that any different to Ryan Jack's challenge on Montgomery for St Johnstone. It's very, very similar. Ryan Jack goes in hard. He wins the ball, but he goes over the top. So, again, it's very, very... This is where referees, again, don't do themselves any favours. The contradiction. In some players they send off, and some players they don't. And I'll be honest, when Ryan Edwards gets sent off, I thought that was the worst thing that could have happened, because we were struggling to break Dundee United down with 11 men. United, when they were out of possession, and Hearts had a lot of the ball, which we're going to do, it's at Tynecastle, but United went 5-4-1 and made it very, very difficult. We really couldn't beat that low block. We couldn't get Barry Mackay in the game, who I'll come on to shortly. We couldn't get Shankland in the game, and we couldn't get Ginnelly in the game. Everything was kind of coming through Robert Snodgrass, but every time Snodgrass looked up, he had 2 of the United players on him. They'd obviously done the homework on him. So we couldn't really break it down, and I thought, that's the worst thing that could have happened, is Edwards getting sent off, because now they're just going to go even deeper. First half ends, and I was, not going to lie, furious, because we didn't react after Wednesday. I thought we were terrible. I was looking for a reaction in the second half, and we got one. We made a few changes. I thought they actually worked quite well. Stephen Humphreys came on, who I will get to shortly, because he scored one of the best goals I think I've ever seen at Tynecastle. But it made a difference. We started to get on the ball a lot more. We started to dominate. We started to get Barry Mackay in the game. Barry Mackay started to stay wide, and he was getting a lot of the ball. And United were struggling to contain him. And I did kind of think to myself, hindsight's great, but I did actually think this to myself, that if Hearts could equalise, I think we'll win the game. Now, I couldn't see the goal coming, to be honest. Again, we make more changes. We bring Alec Cochrane on. We bring on Garang Kuol, who, again, made a difference when he came on. And the first goal does come. And, again, it's Barry Mackay. Barry Mackay on the left-hand side. Great ball in. Great touch by Shankland, who had a quiet game by his standards, but he didn't go out the ball. It's a great touch. Great turn. He is lucky, because it takes a massive deflection, but it goes into the bottom corner. Birighitti can do nothing about it. He's beaten. And Lawrence Shankland now has 21 goals for the season. Not bad for a guy that's meant to be a championship striker. So, 21 goals for Lawrence Shankland. And then at that point, I start to think, right, the game's turned now. Let's go and try and win the game. And we do. And again, Barry Mackay's involved, but it actually starts from Garang Kuol. On the right-hand side, Garang Kuol does really well on the touchline. He's quite touched to the touchline, beats his man, loves a little flick, breaks forward, passes to Humphreys, who was excellent when he came on. Humphreys plays it to Barry Mackay. Barry Mackay cuts inside, and Alec Cochrane makes a great run inside. Barry Mackay plays a great ball through to Cochrane. Cochrane, his left-hand side, finishes it past Birighitti. And within 5 minutes, we've turned the game round. And at that point, I thought, right, see the game out, nothing stupid. We're against 10 men. We don't have to give away any set pieces, any stupid free kicks. And the game should have been won at that point. We did start to dominate the ball. United, I really thought, were actually very impressive yesterday. That's why I think that they might be okay, because they did show a lot more than what Motherwell have shown. So, United tried to hit back. They had a couple of kind of half chances, but when you're down to 10 minutes, it's difficult to really create anything. But I thought United competed very well. And then in the last minute or so, Josh Ginnelly gets sent off. And again, it's the Nick Walsh show. So Josh Ginnelly tries to put the ball down, I think, for a throw-in, and he gets booked. Now, maybe shouldn't have done it, but he sarcastically applauds Nick Walsh, who then brings out a second yellow card, which I just thought was ridiculous. It's the last minute of the game. He's basically booked, I think, Josh Ginnelly for time wasting at first, but United players were doing that pretty much the whole game, time wasting. So I think Nick Walsh was dreadful yesterday. But then I don't know many good referees anyway. They're all pretty poor. And I think at that point, do you know what? We're in the 97th minute. I'm thinking, just see the game out. Please don't concede. Because if we lose a goal to 10 men here, that'll be embarrassing. And then, I don't know how to describe this by doing it justice. Stephen Humphreys gets the ball on the edge of his box. He beats 2 United men who are trying to track him back. One of them is ex-Hearts player Arnaud Djoum. He out-muscles them. And at that point, he is about 65 yards out. Now, he's got Garang Kuol on his left-hand side that he can slip in. Or he can even play it in the corner and get Gareth Cole to run onto it just to try and waste a few seconds. But instead, Humphreys takes a look up. He sees Birighitti off his line, and from 60 yards out, he lobs the ball over Birighitti and into the back of the net. And Tynecastle goes absolutely ballistic. And I've watched it about 103 times now because it is just sublime. Now, to even think about trying that is one thing, but there's a lot that can go wrong with that. You can not get the right elevation on it. You can put it over the bar. You can put it wide. Anything could happen. But Humphreys gets it absolutely spot on the money. It's a brilliant, brilliant goal. Birighitti can do nothing about it. You know, he's trying to kind of get back, but he knows he's beaten as soon as that ball leaves Humphreys' foot. And I think the best picture that I've seen is when you watch it from behind the goal, when it leaves Humphreys' boot, Garang Kwol is already celebrating behind Humphreys because he knows that that's in. And it was just an incredible finish and an absolutely wonderful goal and probably the best goal I think I've seen at Tynecastle. Although, to be fair, I did my Twitter space yesterday for the first time, and a Hearts fan came on it, and he said that one of the best goals he'd seen at Tynecastle wasn't actually a Hearts goal. It was a guy from Bordeaux who, from about, I think it was about 35, 40 yards out, put the ball past Craig Gordon. It was a brilliant strike. And even if you look back at a couple of seasons ago, Connor Ronan for St Mirren in the Scottish Cup, absolutely wonderful goal from Connor Ronan. But I'm going to be biased. That Humphreys goal is stunning. 60 yards out and he lobs the keeper. It was a brilliant, brilliant goal. And I'm going to be honest here. It was a 3 points that I don't really think we deserved. I think United can feel very hard done by. They put a lot into the game. I said they could have been 4 or 5 up in the first half. They were very, very impressive. But when you go down to 10 minutes, it's difficult. You know, you're trying really hard to keep in the game. You're trying to keep that 1-0 lead. And I thought United were very good. I thought Stephen Fletcher was excellent. I thought Dylan Levitt was very good. I thought actually Niskanen had a really good game. And I thought United defence were very, very impressive yesterday. They were very solid. They were good at what they did. They were diligent. And I thought they caused us a lot of problems going forward as well. Stephen Fletcher probably could have scored a couple yesterday. There was a chance, I think, just in the end of the half, I think it was, where he probably should score. But it's a good block by, I think it was Carrillo's actually. But United, for me, showed enough that they're going to be fine this season and they'll stay up, I think. They've got quality going forward. And those players, for me, look like they're playing for Liam Fox. Liam Fox has done a really good job with that United team. They don't really get... Although they lost... If you haven't watched that game yesterday and you're looking at that score and thinking 3-1 Hearts, you're thinking that was comfortable. It honestly wasn't. I can tell you that right now. It wasn't comfortable. United were very impressive yesterday, and I actually agree with somebody that posted on Twitter, a Hearts fan as well, who said that had United not gone down to 10 men, they would have won that game. I agree. I genuinely do agree with that. I think United going down to 10 men, it helped us massively, but United were very good. I'll come on to United in a second, but Hearts yesterday, that was a massive 3 points. We needed that. With St Mirren losing to Hibs, with Livingston winning against Kilmarnock, we needed those 3 points yesterday. And you know what? Sometimes it's not about how you win it. It's just winning games. And we did that yesterday. And actually, bizarrely enough, I wish I was a betting man, but I'm not. I've predicted the last 2 Hearts games correctly. I said 3-0 to Rangers on Wednesday, and I said 3-1 yesterday. So I might predict 5-0 to Hearts against Hamilton next week in the Cup. I'll be wrong. Of course I will be. But in terms of Hearts, a massive 3 points. For now, the gap's back to 7 points against Livingston. Obviously, we have the break now for the Scottish Cup next week against Hamilton. But we're in a good place just now. And I do think that although we had that 10-game unbeaten run before we played Rangers, I actually don't think we've actually played that well in all of the games. I think we've been very poor in most of those games, but we're winning. And that's all that matters at the end of the day. Winning games is all that matters. So a huge 3 points for Hearts yesterday. But Dundee United, yeah, I was very impressed with United yesterday. I thought they defended well. I thought they had a threat going forward. I thought they looked good in midfield. They did lose Jamie McGrath before the game through injury. He was due to start. But I thought they were very good. I really did. I thought they were very impressive. And I think if they keep that kind of performance level up, I think they'll be absolutely fine. They've got a talisman in Stephen Fletcher up front. They really have. He's a handful. even at his age, he's a massive handful. Hearts couldn't really handle him yesterday in that first half. Second half, it was easier because he was on his own. You're against 10 men, so it was a lot more easier for us to deal with. But yeah, I thought Fletcher was excellent, and I thought United were very impressive yesterday. But massive 3 points for Hearts. United, they are bottom. But if they continue to play like they did yesterday and continue to fight and scrap like they did yesterday, I think they'll be fine. I really do. I think they'll probably, I'm going to say right now, I think they'll finish 9th. That's my prediction. I think United will finish 9th. And you can take this, you can record this and play it back to me if I'm wrong. But I think United will finish 9th. If we go into the game at Ammanville, Livingston 3, Kilmarnock 1. Livingston 3-0 up after 29 minutes through Joel Nouble, Bruce Anderson, and a wonderful goal from Stephen Kelly. Kilmarnock got back in the game through Christian George after 47 minutes, but Kilmarnock in that first half were excellent. Very, very impressive. Joel Nouble, who has been injured, came back into the lineup yesterday, and I thought he was outstanding. Again, I hope there's no Livingston fans watching this, and like I've said before as well, that I don't think Nouble will be there coming into the season. I think he's better than Livingston. Now, I'm not going to try and poach him, but I would actually like Hearts to go and sign Joel Nouble. I think he's such a quality player. He's not, and this was mentioned on the sports scene last night, he's not your kind of conventional wide player because he's massive. But he's quick, he's strong, he's skillful, he's got a great touch. He's just an absolute handful. And I thought that first half yesterday, Kilmarnock couldn't handle him. I thought he was brilliant. And he's involved in most of the goals as well. You know, the first goal, it's a good header, but it's poor defending from Kilmarnock. You know, they let the ball come in the box and it's poor defending. Nouble gets away from his man, and, you know, if you're going to leave a guy at his height unmarked in the box, you're going to lose goals. But it was a constant nuisance all game. His pace was causing so many problems. And again, someone else that caused problems was Bruce Anderson, who I thought was excellent. Again, his movement, his pace is such a threat. And if you look at his goal, it's a good ball in from the right-hand side, but Bruce Anderson makes a really good run in behind the Kilmarnock defence. It's a great ball in from the wide area and a very good first-time finish from Anderson. Very, very good finish. And he's proven to be a really good signing for Livingston. I'll be honest, when he signed, I wasn't sure about Anderson, but he's proved to be a very good signing. Again, this is the thing about David Martindale. He gets the best out of the players that he's got. He always gets the best out of them. And I think David Martindale is one of these managers that you want to play for. You'll run through brick walls for him. And I think you've got that where guys like Bruce Anderson, Stephen Kelly, Joel Nouble, Scott Pittman, who again, midfield, I thought was excellent yesterday. The lad Bradley that they signed, I thought again was very, very good. And that first half, Livingston really hammered Kilmarnock. I mean, that was 3 going on about 6 or 7. I thought Livingston were excellent in that first half. Kilmarnock couldn't even near them. And they couldn't get anywhere near Joel Nouble. And it was no surprise that Joel Nouble does create the third goal. It's a great ball in, and what a finish for Stephen Kelly. To take that on the instep, on the volley, on his right foot, and put it in the top corner, it's an absolutely wonderful finish from Stephen Kelly, who was very good yesterday. And Livingston, 3-0 up in the first half. Second half was always going to be different because you kind of think the game's won. I'm pretty sure that in the half-time, the message from David Martindale was, keep going, this game's not won yet. And I think when you go 3-0 up at half-time, it's very difficult not to think this game's done. We'll just relax second half. And I suppose it showed why you can't, because Kilmarnock did get back in the game. Christian Deutsch with his first goal for Kilmarnock. Bit of a scrappy goal, but he does score it. But I never really felt Kilmarnock were going to get back in that game at any point. I always thought Livingston had much more about them with the likes of Joel Nouble, with Anderson. And I always felt it would be a matter of time. It wasn't the case of if, it was when Livingston scored again, but they couldn't get that fourth goal. They would wrap the game up. Kilmarnock, they did kind of scrap and they did try and battle, but they just don't have that quality going forward. I said this during the transfer window show that I was genuinely very surprised they let Kyle Lafferty go. I know there's been a lot of problems with Kyle Lafferty in the past and stuff, but he is a bit like what I said about Joel Nouble. He is a talisman. He is somebody that could have got Kilmarnock out of this position they're in. He's a goal scorer. He's experienced. So I was surprised that they let Kyle Lafferty go. I think there's talk about Lafferty going back to Linfield. Listen, Kyle Lafferty is a very good player. There's no doubt about that, but he does come with a lot of baggage. We all know that. And I hope that Lafferty can kind of settle down and, he's probably got another 2 or 3 years left in him. Maybe not the highest level, but again, I think they have missed Kyle Lafferty because I think Vassell up front for Kilmarnock was okay. I thought Deutsch put himself about a little bit, but they just didn't do enough. And the worrying thing for Kilmarnock is, and for Derek McInnes, will be that they've not won away from home this season. They look like Aberdeen. They're very poor on the road. They don't travel very well. The fact that they're sitting ninth is all down to the home record. They seem to be stronger at home. But that's something Kilmarnock have got to do, is sort that away form out, because if they can't win away from home, again, they're going to be in trouble. Yesterday was a poor performance from Kilmarnock after they won on Wednesday night. So I think Derek McInnes got a lot of work to do. They did strengthen in January, maybe not as much as they would have wanted to, but in terms of Livingston, they are really doing very well this season. They're only sitting 7 points behind Hearts, and you look at that game against Hearts against Livingston a week ago. It was a very poor game. We were on air, and it was a very, very poor game of football. There wasn't a lot of quality, and I think it was two teams that didn't want to lose the game because they know how big it was. But Livingston, especially on that pitch, they are so difficult to play against, and you know what you're going to get with Livingston. And David Martindale sets his sides out to be aggressive, to be on the front foot. And actually, yesterday, and I'm glad they highlighted this on the TV yesterday because it showed the work that Livingston put in. Every player worked so hard. Now, yes, that should be a given in football. In any sport you do, it should be a given. But David Martindale's sides do it from the off. They really press high. They work really hard. Joe Nubley and Bruce Anderson, when they don't have the ball, they work to win it back. And it's not the side of the game that people want to do, especially not attacking players. They don't want to be doing the defensive side. That's not my job. But they do it. And I think as well, the fact that Joe Nubley was on David Martindale's side, Martindale was probably saying, "Hoy, you get stuck in here, big man." And yeah, they are just such a strong side, Livingston. And again, they will be in and around that top four. I hope, as a Hearts fan, that they don't get third place. I don't think they will. But they'll be absolutely, they'll be easily top six this season and very potentially could be fourth. And what a remarkable season that would be for David Martindale. Again, I don't know if anyone can tell me this because I asked this yesterday as well. I don't know if someone knows this on the chat, but if, for example, Hearts get third place in the league, does that mean that Hearts get guaranteed group stage football again, or do we have to get to the cup final? I mean, for Livingston, if they can get European football, I think that would be incredible for David Martindale. And again, something I've said before on the show is the fact that, and I think I said this on Friday to Michael as well, that I think David Martindale is, and I don't want to be disrespectful, I think David Martindale's a better manager than Livingston. I think he could get a really, really good job. And I did say on Friday as well that I think potentially, if I'm Dave Cormack, I'm phoning up Livingston and asking to speak to David Martindale, because I think David Martindale would have a bigger budget at Aberdeen, and I think you would get a lot more out of those players for David Martindale. I really do. So I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that Aberdeen did. I don't know if they will or not, but I just think David Martindale would be such a good manager for Aberdeen because he's a top guy as well. I know that there's a lot of stuff in David Martindale's past. We all know that. But you know what? He seems like a reformed character. He's turned his life around. And you talk about people who deserve second chances. I think David Martindale's shown that. And he puts in so much work to that Livingston team. The dedication, the hours that he spends on that training pitch as well. He's such a good guy. And I just think if he got the Aberdeen job, I think that would be a great fit. I really do. But Livingston, for me, very, very impressive yesterday. Very, very good at home. And if they are challenging Hearts for third place, you know what? Bring it on. I like the challenge. I like the chase. So bring it on. In terms of Kilmarnock, yeah, I mean, I think Kilmarnock, again, I think they'll be down the bottom end of the table. There's only, looking at the league table, there's only 3 points between Dundee United in 12th and Kilmarnock in 9th. So there's not a lot in it. It just takes a team to pick up a couple of results in this league. It is so tight at the bottom of the league. If you can get a couple of results, you can pull yourself away for that bottom of the league. But for me, Kilmarnock going forward just don't offer enough. And that's my worry. Defensively, I don't think they were great yesterday. I thought Joe Wright had a very, very poor game. But maybe it's just an off day for Kilmarnock. But they have to sort the away form out, because to have not won away from home this season, we talk about Aberdeen's away form, Kilmarnock's even worse. At least Aberdeen have won away from home. But the away form of Livingston's a worry. They look very, very poor. And I don't see where they're going to pick up wins from. So there's a lot of work to do there for Derek McInnes. But he's an experienced manager. If anyone could turn it around, he probably can. But I would, again, I think I speak about this a lot about worrying for teams. I genuinely think Kilmarnock could be in serious trouble. I think they could be in massive trouble. But one team that's not in trouble is Hibernian. I'll be honest, I would have hoped that game was a draw yesterday, for Hearts' sake. But Hibs now, on the back of that win yesterday, Ella Yuan's goal after 77 minutes, Hibs are now 5 unbeaten, a massive victory. And it also brought to our end St Mirren's home run. It's their first home loss in 11 league games. And I'll be honest, I thought on Friday this was a game that I couldn't really call it. St Mirren, as I've just said there, at home are very impressive. Stephen Robinson's done a great job there. I think Curtis Main has been excellent, but yesterday he had an off day. He didn't have his shooting boots on yesterday. He could have and probably should have scored a couple yesterday. He was way over with a couple of shots. But I think that was an off day for St Mirren yesterday. But in terms of Hibs, they were decent yesterday. I thought it was a scrappy game of football, I'll be honest. I don't think really either team created very much, especially first half. Hibs huffed and puffed a little bit, and I think Lee Johnson actually said that as well. But that was a huge 3 points for Hibs. They had to win that game. And, you know, it's a big, big 3 points. Azalino, never seen this one before, but welcome to the chat. I thought it was going to be 1-1 St Mirren Hibs. Yeah, I mean, I genuinely thought that game was a potential to be a draw, and the way the game was going, I thought it would be, because I don't think either team really created a lot of chances yesterday. But to be fair, LUN, it's a good finish. You know, it's a good ball at the box. St Mirren probably should defend it better. And, you know, you're talking Dave Narey here. You're talking Dave Narey from the 1982 World Cup, where it's a toe poke. But the power that Ewan gets on that, it's a great finish in off the post, and St Mirren keeper could do nothing about it. But it's a great finish from Ewan. And to be fair, Ewan, and a few Hibs fans have said this as well that I've seen, Ellie Ewan is a very frustrating player because he's got all the ability, but at times he doesn't know what to do with it. But yesterday is a great finish, and he's starting to score a few goals for Hibs. And he's looking like Hibs' main threat for me. Obviously, Kevin Nisbet's out injured, which is a blow for Hibs. You know, they brought on Matthew Hoppe yesterday, the USA signing from USA International signing. Didn't really have a lot of influence in the game, but he was only on the bench. So I think with the game time, he'll get better. Good finish. All right, he's no dribbler, though. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I think I've seen Ewan a few times, and when he's out wide, he kind of tends to beat a man, and then he tries to beat the guy again rather than just getting the cross in. You know, I think it's one of these things. He's got all the idea, he's got all the ability, but no idea at times. Azalino, St Mirren defenders kept taking the ball off him. Yeah, I mean, I think Ewan's one of these guys. He is a very frustrating character because I think at times he's got so much natural ability. He's got pace. He's got ability. There's no doubt about that. But at times, he is still young. Let's be honest, he's still young. I think he needs to learn at times the positions, where to play in, where to kind of lay the ball off, when to take people on. If he can get that right, if he can get that all in one, he'll be some player. But again, if he does, he won't be at Hibs. He'll be at a better, no offence to Hibs, he'll be at a better team. But I think in terms of St Mirren, now we spoke a couple of weeks ago, the Aberdeen Hibs game, we spoke about that being El Sacchio. Now Lee Johnson's done a very good job recently. I thought Johnson was under pressure. I thought he could have done a massive pressure. But he's turned it round. Now, again, I think I saw today, and I don't want to slag that guy off, but I saw an interview with Ryan Porteous after the Watford game after he made his debut and he scored as well. We talked about the fact that the English league is better than the Scottish league. Now, this kind of winds me up a little bit because he's only just left. And I think, and listen, Hibs fans watching this might disagree with me, and that's fine. But I've said numerous times before, I think Ryan Porteous is vastly overrated. And I think he'll get found out in that league. I don't think it's as good as he thinks he is. And for him to now say that the Championship is a better league than the Scottish Premier League, you know what, mate? You were here for a long, long time, and now you've left, you're ripping up the Scottish League. I think you're an embarrassment, to be honest. You know, I think the Scottish League, yes, it does have a lot wrong with it. I don't think VAR has helped. I think some of the pitches in Scotland are very poor. But I think the standard tier is actually better than a lot of folk think it is. And I will always stick up for Scottish football if I can. Listen, you're going to get games that are not great. I'm not going to lie. You're going to get games that are on Sky, or maybe not because they don't like Scottish football. But you're going to get games that are on Sky that maybe aren't the best of games. Like, I'm going to pick a game here just off the top of my head. So let's say, for example, they showed St Mirren against St Johnstone on TV. Is that going to be a great game? Probably not. But as a Scottish football fan, I'm going to watch it because I'm invested in Scottish football. And I think a lot of folk in England look down on Scottish football as a Mickey Mouse league. There's only 2 teams that can win it. And yeah, there are only 2 teams that can win it. But it's kind of the same in the English Premiership. You know, for how many years now was it Man City, Liverpool, Man City, Liverpool, Man City, Liverpool? Arsenal now have kind of got in there. Arsenal have done very well this season. Lost to Everton yesterday. But the standard of Scottish football for me is no worse off than Championship, League One in England for me. So for Ryan Porteous to then come out and say, oh, do you know, England, you've been there one day, mate. You've had one game. To then come on and say that the standard is better, I'm sorry, I disagree with that. So, but listen, that's Porteous's idea. But I think in terms of Hibs, I think, again, they'll be fine where they can get top 6. They're 5th just now. They are still quite a few points off Hearts. Woohoo! Which is great for me. But yeah, I mean, Hibs yesterday were diligent. They were decent defensively. They didn't really create a lot of chances. Any Hibs fans that are watching this, what's your thoughts on Harry McCurdy? Because for me, he's like a Poundland Derek Riordan. You know, that haircut does him no favours, to be honest. I haven't seen enough of McCurdy. I think that he's going to be a massive threat. I think he works okay, but he's still not scored for Hibs yet. And he's not really looked a massive threat for me from what I've seen. Maybe I'm wrong. You can tell me if I'm wrong. I'll happily take your opinion on board. But yeah, I just think that you look at Hibs yesterday, they were decent. It was a massive, massive win. Obviously, they've ended that St Mirren home record, which has been very, very impressive. St Mirren, I think they had an off day yesterday. You know, I think Alec Gogic actually played well for St Mirren against his former team. You know, Alec Gogic is one of these guys. He's a reducer in the midfield. He's not going to create very many chances. He's not going to score goals, but he's a reducer in there. I thought he worked very hard yesterday. But as I say, Curtis Main had an off day yesterday. He probably could have scored a couple. But St Mirren, they are now down to 6th. They're only a point behind Hibs, but St Mirren have got a game in hand, I think, as well. So St Mirren are going to be fine this season. I think they'll be absolutely fine this season. They will be in and around that top 6. Now, at the moment, if you're looking at the top 6, where it is just now, Azulino, Gogic is always good for the buds. So the top 6 at the moment is Celtic are top on 69, Rangers are second on 61, Hearts are third on 42, Livingston are on 4th on 35, Hibs are 5th on 34, and St Mirren are 6th on 33. It is very, very tight in that kind of 4th to 6th position, and in fact, even 7th, to be honest, because Aberdeen are on 32. So it's very tight, congested in the area. So there is still plenty of teams that can get in that top 6. From what I've seen at the moment, I would have to say that I think at the moment, if I was a betting man, as I said earlier, I think the top 6, and I don't know what order, well, I'm going to say this. Celtic will be top, no doubt about that. Rangers will be second. Hearts, I think, will be third. I think Livingston will get 4th. And then for me, it'll be between... I think it's between St Mirren and Hibs for... Do you know, I'm going to go... Do you know what I'm going to say? I think it'll be the same as it is. I think it'll be Livingston 4th, Hibs 5th, St Mirren 6th. I think Aberdeen will miss out on top 6. It'll be very tight, but I think Aberdeen might just miss out on that top 6. So that's what I think the top 6 will become the split. So I'll repeat that. I think it'll be Celtic, Rangers, Hearts, Livingston, Hibs and St Mirren. So I think Aberdeen will miss out on that top 6 place. Which for me It's quite a damning indictment of where Aberdeen are. Azalino. St Mirren's game in hand is versus Motherwell, I think. Always a tight game, but a chance for 3 points for sure. Yeah, definitely. And to be honest with you, Motherwell playing just now, I would fancy St Mirren, to be honest. St Mirren are in a really good place just now. I think Robertson's done a great job. Again, start of the season, a lot of St Mirren fans were not overly impressed with Stephen Robertson. He had a disastrous League Cup run. They started off the season very poorly, obviously getting hammered by Aberdeen, but they went on a run. And obviously in that run, they beat Celtic. They drew Rangers at home. They were very unlucky not to beat Hearts, actually. They should have won that game against Hearts a few weeks ago. So I think St Mirren have done very well. I think, as I said earlier on, I think Curtis Main, although he had a poor game yesterday in terms of finishing, I think Curtis Main's been a really good signing for St Mirren. You know, he looks a real threat. He's a handful. And I think I said this weeks ago as well, he's actually quicker than I thought he was. I was really impressed with Curtis Main's pace and power as well. So, yeah, I think, you know, St Mirren will be in that top six, no doubt about that. And the Hibs as well. They've now got a break because they're not in the Scottish Cup. Unfortunate. So, yeah, they've got a break now before the next league game. So a chance for Lee Johnson to work with the players, work with the team. They'll get Kevin Nisbet back, who will be a huge boost for them. Obviously, they are missing Martin Boyle. He has been a huge miss for them with that pace that he gives them. But Hibs on a bit of a resurgence just now. And I think, do you know what? I'm going to be honest here, right? Even as a Hearts fan, I always try and be balanced. I think I can see what Johnson's trying to do. I can see the way he wants his team to play. And I think he's getting the best out of that team. So, yeah, I think the one thing I will say as well is, and I don't know if this was checked, I never actually seen this, but I think Josh Campbell might have been a little bit fortunate to stay on the pitch yesterday. There was a potential red card for me for a very high challenge, but I don't know if he even got a booking for that. But for me, it looked very reckless from what I saw. But Josh Campbell's been a really good player for Hibs as well. Obviously got the hat-trick against Aberdeen. So, yeah, he's looked very good, to be honest. So, St Mirren and Hibs, you know, it was a potential, I think, for a draw, but a massive, massive 3 points for Hibs yesterday. If we now move on, I can't believe I've actually managed to do an hour here on my own. I'm very impressed with that again. I was only going to do an hour, but I might try and stay on for a bit longer if I can. Anyone that wants to comment, keep your comments coming in, because obviously I kind of survive doing the show and comments that come in, because doing this on your own for 2 hours is difficult on your own when you're talking. I've got no music to play, although I could just start singing along to anything. But yeah, again, thank you again, as always. I always like to say thank you to everyone that's been watching this so far. It is massively appreciated. We appreciate everybody that watches, everybody that comments, everybody that likes this page, everyone that, you know, that gets involved in the channel as well. You can follow us on Independence Live and IndieLive.radio. We're on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. If you want to comment on anything that I'm talking about today, just get involved in the live chat, as a few folk have done so far. But the last game yesterday was Rangers against Ross County. At Ibrox, Rangers won by 2-1. Goals from Marek Tillman after 45 minutes. Ross County equalised through Jordan White after 65 minutes. And a free kick from Borna Barisic deflected in, gave Rangers the victory. Now, what I will say about this game is Rangers won. But they weren't great. And I think a lot of that has to do with Ross County. I thought Ross County were very, very impressive yesterday. I thought they competed very well. I thought they put a lot into the game. I thought Malky Mackay was very brave with his tactics. I thought they competed very well. If you look at that Ross County team, they started with two up front, Jordan White, Eamon Brophy, and I thought they caused Rangers a lot of problems. Rangers couldn't really get rhythm going first half. You know, they had a couple of kind of glimpses. I think Marek Tillman and Todd Cantwell had a couple of decent chances. Morelos got behind a couple of times. There was a kind of snapshot from Tavernier that probably should do better. But I thought Ross County defended very well. They were very aggressive in their approach. They set up 3-4-1-2, and they caused Rangers problems. I thought they had a goal, and this is something that I speak about a lot about Hearts, that I wish would have a goal at Rangers. Ross County, I thought, did. I thought they set the stall out to have a goal, defend very well. They got in they tried to get tackles in early on the likes of Todd Cantwell and Ryan Kent, who were probably Rangers' two best players yesterday. And the goal, when it does come, it is very good play. just in the stroke of half time. It was good play. Todd Cantwell makes it as a great ball into the back post, and Malik Tillman heads it in. And I think Tillman's done very well for Rangers. A good player, actually, Malik Tillman. He's got 2 very good feet. He can drift in and out. He looks a very good player. So, yeah, I think Malik Tillman is a very, very good player for Rangers. And he's scoring his Hearts in midweek as well. So, he's looked very good. And I do like Todd Cantwell. I watch a lot of English football. And I watched him for Norwich. He's a very good footballer. Very, very quick feet. Very good on the ball. Composed on the ball. And he likes to create chances. And I thought he did that yesterday. And when he gets up to speed, I think he'll be a very good signing for Rangers. And you think at that point, Rangers 1-0 up at half-time, you think, right, they'll go win the game 3 or 4 now. They've got the goal up. But to be fair to Ross County, they came right back into the game. They made a change, and they brought on Simon Murray, the signing from Queen's Park, which I'm really surprised about. And I said this on the transfer window deadline day. I was very, very surprised that they signed Simon Murray. And apparently the story goes that Simon Murray was in the Queen's Park squad for the game a few days ago, but they picked him up from a hotel and basically drove him to the Highlands to be involved against Hibs. So, yeah, it was a bizarre situation, but Simon Murray's going to score goals for Ross County. And I think Michael said this the other day as well, that he could be the difference between Ross County staying up and not. And I agree. Simon Murray scored a lot of goals for Queen's Park. He's a very, very good player. And he will score goals. And I think it's his cross. It's a good bit of play from Ross County on the right-hand side. Great ball in the box. And Jordan White does what Jordan White does. He out-jumps John McLaughlin, heads it into the back of the net, 1-1. And you could kind of sense the Rangers fans getting a little bit frustrated because they weren't playing that well. I mean, the annoying thing is for me, Rangers' best performance was against Hearts on Wednesday, but we didn't do enough. We didn't create enough. We didn't cause problems. We didn't get in Rangers' faces like Ross County did. Ross County were excellent yesterday. And I think if you're Malky Mackay, you're delighted with the performance. Yes, you've lost the game, but you're delighted with how your team played because you competed really well. You were very, very impressive all over the pitch. I thought they were very good yesterday. And the goal that they conceded 75 minutes gone, it's a free kick on the right-hand side. Borna Barisic takes it, and it takes a huge deflection off Jordan White and leaves Ross Laidlaw on the Ross County goal rooted. You know, you can't do anything about it. He doesn't know where that ball's going. It's such an unfortunate goal for Ross County to lose a game like that through a deflection. But I suppose if you're Rangers just now, you just want to win games. You want to try and keep up the pressure on Celtic. Although, as I've said, the league's done for me. Celtic have won it. So it was a massive 3 points for Rangers yesterday. Having, I don't think, played that well. But if you're a Rangers fan leaving that stadium yesterday, you're thinking, you know what? It's all about 3 points. We picked up 3 points before Celtic go to St Johnstone. You know, could that be a massive difference? Well, obviously it's not because Celtic won comfortably today, but all you can do with your Rangers is win games. And they're doing that, having not played overly well, apart from Wednesday night against Hearts. So that was a big 3 points for Rangers. And they can now look forward to a Scottish Cup day next week as well. They're at home, I think, to Partick Thistle, which you'd imagine they'll win. And then in a few weeks' time, and we will be on air because on the 26th of February, it is the Viaplay Cup final between Celtic and Rangers at I was going to say Celtic Park there, but it's not. It's a Hampden Park. So that could be a huge, huge game. Now, I think that potentially, and I don't want to, I'm going to say it because I'm not a Celtic fan or Rangers fan. I genuinely think that Celtic will win a treble this season. I think they'll win the Viaplay Cup final. I think they'll beat Rangers. I think it'll be close, but I think they'll win that. They've already, for me, won the league. And then it becomes about the Scottish Cup, which again, I think Celtic will probably win it. They've got another home game coming up next weekend. I just think you look at the two squads, and Celtic's squad is better than that Rangers squad. You know, Celtic have got guys to bring on off the bench like Haksabanovic, like you can bring, you can rest guys like Abada, you can rest guys like Jota, and you're not making the squad any weaker. You know, you're still strengthened. I think the losing Giakoumakis for me, I was surprised about, and I know that my colleague James Elliott spoke about this as well, that I was surprised they didn't keep Giakoumakis because Giakoumakis scores goals. He's a different kind of player. He's a physical presence that Celtic don't really have going forward. And if you need to change the game up, he's someone you can bring on and he can ruffle up defenders and he can score goals. So that was a surprise for me. But you look at the difference of the Celtic and Rangers bench, and I just think Celtic have more on that bench. So I think Celtic will probably win a treble this season under Postecoglou. And in terms of the Rangers, and I said this to Fred as well, I don't think you'll see the best of Rangers until the summer, until the start of next season, where it's a level, where it's a, you're starting the season at scratch. What Rangers do in January will be, or in the summer, will be interesting. And again, will they get John Souttar back? That's a $64 million question. John Souttar, again, can't get fit. And I think he probably will start if he's fit. But that's the big question. Will he be fit? So, yeah, I just think that Rangers yesterday were not great, but they won 3 points, and that's all that matters. And for Ross County, again, I think I worried from a while ago because they couldn't score goals. But since then, they've brought in Simon Murray, they brought in Eamon Brophy, who I think is a very good signing as well. So they now have players that can score goals for them. And I think now, on the back of that, I think Ross County will be fine. I don't think they'll go down. I think they'll get out of it. It'll be difficult, but for me, again, you're not defined by the results at Ibrox, but the performance was really good. And if you look at Malky Mackay, they've actually played well against Celtic, they played well against Hibs, they played well against Rangers. They are playing well. They're just maybe not picking up the points that they probably deserve to pick up. I think for me, one of the players that I've been really impressed with is Jan Dander. I think he looks a very good player for Ross County. Again, he's one of these guys that gets in the ball and tries to create chances. So, yeah, I really like Jan Dander. He's a very good player. So I think Ross County will be absolutely fine. As we know, Celtic look untouchable. Rangers won't get near them for years, I reckon. Yeah, again, I think, Celtic for me are just going to probably get stronger. And if you look in the summer, I would imagine that Celtic will strengthen further. I don't know if they'll lose anybody in January. I keep saying January. I'm obsessed with January for some reason. I think in the summer they will strengthen. I think they'll get even stronger. What Rangers do in the summer will be interesting. I think Michael Beale, for me, again, I'm not sure about Michael Beale. I think I can see what he's trying to do. He's trying to get his team to play the ball on the deck. He's trying to play on the front foot, but I'm just not convinced by them. Again, yes, Wednesday they played well, but that was, for me, that was about how poor Hearts were. And I'm not taking away for Rangers here because they did play well, but we made it far too easy for them, like we do far too many times for my liking. But yeah, I think Celtic are miles ahead of Rangers just now. I think if you just look at the two starting 11s, I think that Celtic team is far, far stronger than Rangers. And you look at the two benches, and there's a massive difference on that as well. I'm looking at that Rangers bench yesterday. They had McGregor, Hadji, Cholak, Camara, Sands, Wright, Raskin, Lowry, Tillman. Now, would any of those Rangers subs get on the Celtic bench? I'll be honest, I don't think they do. I really don't think they do. Cholak, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think any of those Rangers players get on that Celtic bench. I'll be brutally honest. Whereas if you look at the Celtic bench today, for example, the Celtic bench today, they had on the bench, they had Haksabanovic, Abada, Turnbull, Kobayashi, Iwata, Bain, O'Reilly, and Forrest. You kind of look at that Celtic bench and you think there's most of that Celtic bench would get on the Rangers bench. And that's me being honest here. I've got no loyalty towards either team. I'm a Hearts fan. Everyone knows that. But I'm looking at it from the outside looking in. And I just think that Celtic bench looks so much stronger than Rangers. And that Celtic bench, probably a lot of those players getting that Rangers side. Again, anyone wants to disagree, you can. Not a problem at all. I'm all about opinions. But, yeah, in terms of Ross County, I like how they try to play. I like what Malky Mackay tries to do. So I think for me, I just think that Ross County will be fine this season. I think they'll be absolutely fine. They look very, very impressive going forwards. And I think the signings of Eamon Brophy and the signings of just looking Twitter here to see if anyone else coming out. And the signing of Simon Murray is huge. I really do. I think it's a massive, massive couple of signings that. So I'll get back into football very shortly, but I have to talk about the rugby yesterday because in the Six Nations, let me have a wheel of drink here because my mouth is dry. An hour and 50 minutes on your own is tough work when you're doing this. But yeah, the Six Nations yesterday, Scotland ran out 29-23 winners against England. An incredible game of rugby. And probably for me, and a lot of other folk might agree with us, Duhan van der Merwe's try is probably the best try I think I've ever seen, not just from Scotland, but anybody. And I know a few folk have actually mentioned this as well. It was very like Jonah Lomu. Now, I thought Scotland started the game not great, but we scored first. The try from Hugh Jones early on after a great bit of play from Tuilato. England came back into the game, and you're kind of thinking Scotland maybe in trouble here, but then, I mean, that try, we have to talk about it. So the ball's played up into the Scotland half, and Van der Merwe picks it up deep inside his own half. And at that point, you're thinking, well, what's he going to do here? He beats one, he beats two, he keeps running, he beats three, he keeps running, he beats four, he keeps running, he beats five, and he puts the try down. It is incredible. It is absolutely sensational from Van der Merwe, who does score 2 tries in this game. But that was sensational. The pace, the power, everything about that is what you love about rugby. It's what folk want to see. And I think the commentators probably did it justice while watching it. It was just sensational stuff. And to score that try anywhere is incredible. But to score it at Twickenham against the old enemy in the opening game of the Six Nations was unbelievable. It really was. And he's such a quality player as Van der Merwe. He's got that ability about him. He's got that pace and power. Nobody was stopping him. I mean, you could have put anybody near him and he wouldn't have stopped him. He was getting that try no matter what. And it kind of set up the rest of the game for me because I thought Scotland competed very well. You know, Gregor Townsend, again, I said this on Friday, there's still a lot of Scotland people maybe not convinced by Gregor Townsend. If that doesn't convince folk, I don't know what will. You know, and the thing is, with 6 minutes to go, Scotland are 23-22 down. And I'm kind of thinking, I don't know if we're going to get back into this game. It's a sore defeat because I thought we put a lot into the game. And then thankfully, Van der Merwe scores his second try. Not quite as good as his first one, but, you know, a very good try. And it's another victory for Scotland at Twickenham. And I did say on Friday that I felt that Scotland could win this game. You know, England didn't know what to expect. Their new manager, Steve Borthwick, they didn't know what to expect from Scotland. We didn't really know what to expect from England. And it's just an unbelievable victory. And it's the back-to-back wins at Twickenham for the first time. And it feels great to be a Scotland fan just now. It really does. I mean, to see that try, and I've watched the Stephen Humphreys Hearts goal today about 100 times. I think I've watched the Van der Merwe try about 90 times. It is just, from where he picks that up, he's got no right to score from that. He really has got no right to score from that. Now, if you're Steve Borthwick, you're probably wondering why nobody's actually put a proper challenge on him. But I don't think anybody would have stopped him. He's just so quick, and you know, for a winger to do that at Twickenham was incredible. And Scotland, you know, I thought the last minute or so when England were on the attack, I was worried, and I actually put in our group chat, Scotland need to get this ball turned over quickly. And as the clock ran down to like 70 minutes, I'm thinking, please, no mistakes here, because penalties weren't good enough for England. They had to get a converted try. My worry was that they would get that in the last minute, but thankfully, Scotland got the turnover, kicked the ball out, and it was another fantastic victory at Twickenham. Gregor Townsend's record against England is actually fantastic. Let's be honest, it's a brilliant victory. And I think Scotland have now got a few home games to come up. I'm just trying to look at the fixtures. Again, I should have been more prepared for this, but I didn't know I was going to be my own. So let me just check the next fixtures. I'm sure actually Michael told me this on Friday. I should probably pay more attention to him, shouldn't I? Let me just check. I had the fixture up 2 seconds ago. I've done that. So I'll just give you the latest score as well. In the Italy-France game, it's a very close game actually. It's Italy 21, France 22. A very, very tight game. The other game yesterday was Wales 10, Ireland 34. Azzolino says Scotland has won 3 Calcutta Cups in a row and 5 from the last 6. which again is just an incredible record. It really is. And I said this on Friday as well. It doesn't matter what you're playing with that. Tiddlywinks, bowls, snooker, anything. You want to win. And Scotland's record is now fantastic. I wonder if we're playing them again and beating them at Twickenham, do we get to keep them? Do we get to put in the little shelf in the corner? But yeah, just a magnificent victory. So yeah, Ireland beat Wales by 34 points to 10. Now, again, we had a couple of comments on Friday that were saying that Ireland and France are favourites to win the Six Nations. And I did say at the time, why can't Scotland win it? Nothing to lose. If you go into games thinking that you can't win, then it's pointless. Scotland have got a really good chance at this. Yes, I can understand why Wales, Ireland and France are favourites, but that win yesterday, if that doesn't do Scotland confidence, nothing will. It was a massive win. And in Duhan van der Meer, I think we've got one of the standouts in the Six Nations, and he'll get better. And I think if you are France, Wales, Ireland, Italy, you've been thinking, I don't want to come against him because this guy's quick. This guy's lightning quick. So just looking at the fixtures next week, we have on the Saturday, it is Ireland against France. That could be a big game. That's at 2:15. And at 4:45, it's Scotland against Wales. And just check. I think England play. Is it England play Italy on the next game? Just let me check. I had that up 2 seconds ago. So I think England play Italy. But yeah, it's a massive, massive chance for Scotland. And that try from Van der Merwe yesterday will be talked about for years and years to come. And I think fair play to Gregor Townsend, because a lot of folk were getting on his back and saying, he's not good enough for Scotland. And he's more than proven that he is. A massive, massive victory. And I mean, I just think that game yesterday was called a thriller. And I would agree with that. It kind of swung from end to end. And Scotland scoring tries through the two from Van der Meer, a try from Hugh Jones and a try from Ben White. So a massive victory for Scotland. And there's no reason that Scotland can't go into that game next week with a lot of confidence. And as Azzolino says here, that 3 Calcutta Cups in a row and 5 from the last 6. That is phenomenal. Because let's be honest, the record against England recently was not overly impressive, but that's all changed now. So absolutely fantastic. And I'm just delighted for Scotland. Azzolino, how big do you think home advantage is in rugby? Have we already won the hardest game? It's a tough one. I think home advantage in any sport, I think, is a huge help. But you know what? I think when it comes to Scotland-England, I think the fact that Steve Borthwick was in charge yesterday, his first game, didn't really know what to expect. Maybe that kind of helped Scotland a little bit. Maybe he didn't really know what Scotland was all about. But I just think that home advantage, yes, it can be important. I mean, if you look at the game today, for example, France are only a point ahead against Italy. And Italy have been kind of whipping boys for a number of years. But they're making it really, really difficult for France. Home advantage can be difficult. But I just think if you have the quality, it shouldn't really matter about home advantage. And I think for me, have we already won the hardest game? Probably not. I think for me, the hardest game might be France. And I know a lot of folk are talking about Ireland and that as well, but I just think France might be the hardest game for me. I think that's going to be huge. I think the fact that we played England first was probably a good thing because Steve Borthwick in charge for the first game. Getting England out of the way first, I think, for me, was massive. And getting your first win straight away is huge. And it builds that confidence. Whatever you do, it builds confidence. Whenever you win your first game in anything, it builds confidence. And that's a massive win yesterday. And I honestly believe Scotland have a chance of winning this year. I do firmly believe that. If you don't believe it, what's the point? So yeah, I think Scotland have got a great chance of winning this year. If we keep up performances like that, there's every chance we can. Let me just check something. Azzolino has said, is France match at Murrayfield or in Paris? It's in Paris. It's the 26th of February. It's a 3 o'clock start, apparently. So our games are we play Wales next week, 4:45 kickoff. We play France on the 26th in Paris at 3 o'clock. We play Ireland at home on the 12th of March. We play Italy on the 18th of March at 12:30 away. And then I think it's the World Cup, which starts in September. Scotland started against South Africa. So, yeah, I mean, Scotland have got some home matches. They've got 3 home games, which I think could be huge. The 3 home games, as I've just mentioned, there are against Wales, Ireland, and Italy. If we can beat Wales at home, which will be a difficult game, but if we can beat them and then go to Paris, if we could somehow beat France, I think that gives us a great chance to win the Six Nations. I really do. But that France game could be absolutely huge. I really think that could be a massive, massive game. If you go to Paris and win, what a massive boost that would be. It'll be difficult, don't get me wrong. But those 3 home games, again, they could be really, really huge. I'm going to go back to the football because I'm going to look at the games from the lower leagues yesterday. And before I look at them, I'm going to give you the results of the games from yesterday. I did put this in the lock on Twitter yesterday, but I'll run down the results from yesterday. So in the Championship, it finished Arbroath 1, Raith Rovers 2, Hamilton 1, Dundee 1, Morton were beaten 2, Inverness 2, Morton 2, and Partick Thistle 0, Cove Rangers 1. That's a huge result, that. In League 1, it was Airdrie 1, Clyde 0, Alloa 1, Peterhead 0, Dunfermline 2, Montrose 0, Kelty Hearts 1, Falkirk 2, and Queen of the South 1, FC Edinburgh 0. And in League 2, it was Bonnyrigg Rose 1, Annan 2, East Fife 1, Stirling Albion 1, Elgin City 1, Albion Rovers 1, Forfar 2, Stranraer 1, and Stenhousemuir 1, Dumbarton 0. If I look at the Championship for a minute, I mean, that result for... And also, I should have actually said as well, on Friday night, if anyone wasn't watching, the top of the table clash between Queen's Park and Ayr United finished Queen's Park 2, Ayr United 0. A penalty from Dom Thomas and an own goal from Nicholas McAllister. Going into that game, Queen's Park were only a point ahead of Ayr United. So that was a big, big game. And I thought Queen's Park deserved to win the game. I thought the better side for me for most of that game. Again, I didn't know how it was going to go, because if you actually look at it as well, Queen's Park had the massive blow that they've been booted out the Scottish Cup for fielding if I can speak, ineligible player. You know, Ewan Henderson played when he shouldn't have done. So that was a massive blow. Losing Simon Murray, their top goal scorer, to Ross County was a massive blow. So you wondered how Queen's Park would react to that. And I guess a team for Ayr United who've been very impressive, who put 5 goals past Cove the week before in the league. That was a massive, massive game, that. And the first half, I thought, was very, very scrappy. There wasn't a lot going on. But I thought Queen's Park dominated possession, dominated the ball, but hadn't really offered much going forward. Second half, I thought they were better. I thought they deserved to get the 2 goals. Ayr United didn't really offer that much. I thought they relied a bit too much on the long ball to Dipo Akinyemi, who I actually thought was marked very well by Queen's Park. And I've said this numerous times before, and I will keep on repeating this as well, and anyone can disagree with me on this. I genuinely want Queen's Park to come up. I just think it'll be a fantastic story. Now, you can talk about fairy tales all you want, but Queen's Park are an institution. They are for me a big club in Scotland. All the years that we talk about Queen's Park and what they've done, they are a big club and they're doing things the right way. They have a really good board there. And again, I said on Friday, if you look at the whole Gretna situation, Gretna were basically run by Brooks Mileson's money. Without him, what they did wouldn't have happened. He brought in a lot of players on massive, massive wages. He kind of shelled out on different things for them, like cars and stuff. And at the time, I'll admit, I bought into it. I bought into the Gretna story. Aslino, the second tier of Scottish football is absolutely brutal. I agree about Queen's Park, by the way. I just think the Gretna story, I get why a lot of folk didn't agree with it, and I get why a lot of pundits didn't agree with it, but I just thought for a team like Gretna to come up through 3 divisions, to be in the Scottish Cup final against Hearts, which they actually were unlucky not to win, to be honest, to be in European football, although they got absolutely hammered on it. You know, if one person has the ambition to run a football club and he does it and they win games, are you really going to be that bothered? Obviously, what happened after that, with Brooks Melson passing away and obviously Gretna going out of business, was a massive shame. But I thought it was a really good story. And I just think the way that Queen's Park are doing things is the right way. You know, they have the owner there, Willie Hockey, who puts a lot of money in, but they're doing it the right way. Now, they are at the moment playing at Oakville View, Stenhousemuir's ground. They will go, I think, back to Lesser Handle when it's built. It's not built yet. But I genuinely think that if Queen's Park come up, now listen, they may go straight back down. But what a story that would be. Imagine like Queen's Park playing Celtic or playing Rangers or going to Tynecastle, going to Easter Road. It would be incredible. Now, I know a lot of folk, and I've heard a few pundits as well, I won't name them, but I've heard a few pundits saying that if Queen's Park come up, it'll be embarrassing for Scotland. I don't agree with that. I'm sorry, I don't. I think if you come up, then you deserve to come up. And I think Queen's Park deserve to come up for me. You know, they've got Leanne Dempster there, who was at Hibs. Again, I think she does a very good job. So I think Queen's Park are doing a very good job. And if they come up, it would be incredible. I think they would more than hold their own. And I've said already, I said on Friday, I think Queen's Park, for example, would give Kilmarnock a game. I think they give Motherwell a game. I think they give St Johnstone a game. I think they would be competing around that kind of bottom 4, bottom 5, I think, in the Premier League. If they went back down, they went back down. But I generally think they would give a lot of teams in that league a difficult game, especially when Lesser Handon's built, because teams are not going to know what to expect when they go there. So I think that would be a huge, huge thing if Queen's Park can come up, and I really hope they do. I am firmly backing, as I was with Arbroath last season, I am firmly backing Queen's Park to come up. I think it would be incredible. But looking at the league, I mean, you look at the games yesterday, and I think for me, the result that I'm really surprised about is is Cove Rangers beating Partick Thistle. That was a huge, huge shock. Cove scoring after 27 minutes through Mitchell Megginson. Partick did have a man sent off. Brian Graham was sent off after 70 minutes, but that was a huge result for Paul Hartley. You know, Cove had been very, very poor. They were conceding a lot of goals. I think they lost 2 games in a row to Ayr United, conceding 8 goals in the league and the cup. I thought if I was going to be, say, if I was guaranteed an absolute banker, it would have been Partick Thistle to win that game. But again, it just goes to show. And again, I've said the Championship is so competitive, and it just goes to show how competitive that league is. Because I don't think anybody expected Cove to go there and win that game. So fair play to Cove Rangers. That was a huge, huge win. And I think as well, you look at league table now and Cove, you know, they're kind of pulling away from that bottom 2. They are now 4 points ahead of Arbroath. They're only 6 points ahead of Morton in 7th place. So Cove, if they can get a run of games together, could maybe pull themselves out of that. But that was a huge blow for Partick Thistle. I wouldn't have liked to be Ian McCall in that dressing room. I'd imagine those Partick Thistle players were getting a few home truths yesterday, because that is a huge result. A massive, massive blow at Partick Thistle. But again, the league table, Partick are not actually that far behind. You know, they're on 33 points. They are 10 points behind Queen's Park in top. A run of results, a run of games, you could put yourself up there. So it's not out with the relative possibility that Queen's Partick Thistle could potentially chance for the title. I don't think they will. And results out yesterday are not going to help. But a massive, massive victory for Queen's Park. It really was. For me, the biggest shock of the day for me. Hamilton against Dundee, finishing 1-1. Hamilton Academical scoring after 5 minutes through the on-loan Hearts midfielder, Connor Smith, who is a very good player, by the way. If any Hamilton fans are watching this, highly unlikely, but if any Hamilton fans are watching this, you've got an absolute gem in Connor Smith. Very, very good footballer, very gifted player, really good on the ball, really composed, and he can score goals too. So that's a huge boost. A huge boost for him. But Dundee got level through Jordan McGee, another ex-Jambo, after 38 minutes. And the game did end up finishing 1-1. Probably not a massive surprise, to be honest, that game finishing 1-1. I think Hamilton at home on that kind of plastic pitch, they're a decent side. They've got a massive game in the Cup against Hearts on Friday next week. That game's on BBC Scotland for anyone that's interested, anyone that wants to watch that game. 1:45 kickoff, I believe. In the end, that could be a huge point. for Hamilton. And a huge disappointment for Dundee they've not won that game, because they will have aspirations of winning that title. Again, it's very tight. They're only 4 points off Queen's Park, but going to the bottom of the league table, you've got to think they've got to be looking to win that game. But, you know, fair play to Hamilton. That's a massive, massive point. They are, at the moment, unfortunately, adrift at the moment. They're 3 points behind Arbroath. So that could be a huge point for them. But if you're Dundee, you're looking to pick up 3 points against bottom of the league table. I'm not going to lie. I think for me, Arbroath against Wraith Rovers, a big 3 points for Wraith Rovers again. And again, they've got a big, big Scottish Cup game this week against Motherwell, which I've just said earlier on. I genuinely think Wraith Rovers could win that game because Motherwell is so poor. But that could be a massive, massive 3 points for Wraith Rovers going forward. I do like Wraith Rovers, but again, they've done a lot wrong. I don't really want to get into it, but how they handled the whole David Willie thing for me was an absolute disgrace. I thought heads should have rolled in that circumstance. I really do. A lot of folks should have lost their jobs, John McGlynn being one of them. But they've kind of turned it around now. I'm still not convinced with the whole family club thing after all that. But do you know what? Wraith Rovers are a good club. I've been to Kirkcaldy a few times. I've been to Starks Park a few times. It's a nice wee ground, actually. I quite like going there. But that was a big 3 points for them. So, yeah, a big 3 points there in the Championship. But I really do want Queen's Park to come up. Like I said last season, I want Arbroath to come up as well. So that's a huge 3 points. Just try to see what else is happening in the world of sport these days. We've got about... I'm actually doing nearly 2 hours here. I'm quite impressed with that, actually. I'm just trying to look and see if I can get some comments from some of the managers, actually, after yesterday. See if we can get Ange Postecoglou comments after the game today. Let me see. So if I look at Callum Davidson after the game today, Callum Davidson said... So Callum Davidson, after the 4-1 defeat to Celtic, said, "It's not often you play against Celtic, have 4 shots on target and they score 4 goals. A couple of the goals we lost were poor, but we did a lot of good things. The 4-1 flat scoreline flatters them a little bit. I was quite pleased with the parts of our game. We tried to squeeze them. If they peppered us on our 18-yard line, they'd have scored quite a lot, so we tried to keep them out of our box." Celtic manager Ange Postecoglou said the pitch was one of the obstacles. As the game wore on, it just got more and more hard for the lads to get a foothold. We controlled the game really well early on. We scored a couple of good goals, some great movement. Disappointed we conceded, but again, great reaction from the lads to go up the other end and get a third. Yeah, I mean, I think Postecoglou probably that the St Johnstone pitch is not particularly great. As Lino says, you see, I think there's easily 6 teams in the Championship who could compete in the top flight. It's a horrible league to be in, so precarious and tight. Sorry, I'm only chatter. Do you know what? And again, maybe folk might not agree with this, but I am an advocate of expanding the league. I think league reconstruction should come into it, because I generally think that if you expanded the league and made it, for example, like an 18-team league, I think it'd be better. I mean, I kind of think that, see, when you play the same teams, you know, you're playing 4 times a season, potentially 5 or 6, depending on cup competition. I think it does get very stale. I think it does get very boring. And I think the time to do it, and again, I might be just going out of turn here, but I'm going to say it anyway. But the time to do it for me was during the COVID times and when Hearts went out the league, basically got demoted. That was the time for me for the SPL to get together and go, do you know what? Let's reconstruct the league. Let's make it an 18-team league. Let's get the likes of Dundee, Dunfermline, an example, or other teams as well into the top league, and let's make it a bit more competitive, because seeing the same teams every few weeks is boring. Let's be honest, it is. So I think I would quite happily have an extended league. Aslino, loving your comments today, pal. So you have said, much better for the fans. We get sick of some of the same away days. More chance of us unseating the old firm at the top as well. Yeah, again, this is something as well that, again, I don't think in my lifetime, now I'm 45, I don't think I'll ever see in my lifetime anybody outside Celtic and Rangers win the league. Now, Hearts went up there a few times challenging, but we don't have the financial power to do it. Now, I know, and this has been very controversial for a number of years, I know that back in the old days, like the 80s, 90s, I know that there was talk of Dundee United and Dundee merging. That never happened. There was obviously the massive talk of Wallace Mercer taking over Hibs, which I did not agree with one little bit. I could see what he was trying to do. I could see that he was trying to get like a team that could mount a challenge. But you can't merge two teams like Hearts and Hibs. It was never going to work. And I have to say, the whole hands off Hib thing was great. I agreed with that completely, even the Hearts fan, because I didn't want to see that happen. I could see where Wallace Mercer was coming from, but it was a complete wrong idea. And I would love, obviously, I don't want to see Hibs doing it, but I would love to see another team up there challenging the Old Firm and splitting them. But it is so hard to do. It is so difficult to do. Because Celtic and Rangers have more money. They've got bigger stadiums. They've got more fan base. And I think they can sign players for more money than we can. And I don't think it's ever going to happen in my lifetime. I really don't. I hope it does, but I don't think it will. Even if somebody could split the Old Firm, if somebody could finish second even and break that kind of monopoly, but I just don't think it's going to happen for me. I really don't. I just think it's too much. You need to have a lot of money behind you, and we just don't. Now, yes, Hearts did make a lot of money from European games. We made a lot of money from the games against Zurich and the games against Fiorentina and the game against RFS and the game against Başakşehir. But again, we've spent £350,000 on Orestes Kemurtsoglu, who, for me, has been a very poor signing, offered nothing. Aberdeen are the team for me that probably, apart from us, should be up there challenging, but they have been on a decline for a number of years now. This is why they need to get the next appointment right. They need to get this next appointment right for me, because Aberdeen should be up there challenging. I'm going to try and get some other comments from other managers from over the weekend. Let me see what I can find here. So Rangers against Ross County. Let's get Michael Beale, who said, we went with a really bold lineup, especially when John Lundstrom went off injured. I thought County were excellent throughout. They weren't dangerous in open play, but at set pieces they carried a threat. Malky Mackay said, the overall performance gives me confidence going forward. We take plaudits and we don't take points, which is disappointing. We've come out the window strongly and we have strength and depth now. As a group, we'll be doing everything we can to stay in the league. So Rangers now, they play Partick Thistle in the Scottish Cup next weekend. County don't play in the Scottish Cup because Hamilton knocked them out. So they're in action in a fortnight when they play St Mirren in the league. Difficult games, that, to be honest. I actually should have told you who Celtic and St Johnstone play next. So Celtic's next game, they play in the Scottish Cup against St Mirren at home next week. St Johnstone don't play until they play Dundee United. Again, that could be a massive game as well. So big games coming up there. There is actually, let me just double check. There is SWPL games on this afternoon. Let me just check if I could get the scorelines for you. So in the SWPL, the games that have finished already this afternoon, Glasgow City 8, Partick Thistle 1, Celtic 3, Aberdeen 0. These games are all still going on just now. Dundee United 0, Rangers 2 after 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, it's Hamilton 0, Spartans 0. Hibernian 2, Glasgow 0. And after 41 minutes, it's Motherwell 1, Hearts 0. If we look at the top of the table, just get the standings here. So we're looking at the top. I'll look at the top three. Glasgow City are top after 17 games on 47 points. They've scored 69 goals and conceded 7. Celtic are on 17 games. They've scored 75 goals and they've conceded 3, and they're on 44 points. Rangers, at the moment, they're 2-0 up. 17 games played. They have scored 71 goals and conceded 2, and they're on 43 points. And then you're looking way, way down for fourth place. Hearts in fourth place. 17 games played. They've scored 24 goals, conceded 15. Bottom of the league, Glasgowmen, who have played 17 games. They've scored 6 goals and conceded 86 goals. Glasgow women yet to pick up a point in the league. I mean, I think I've spoken to David about this before, the fact that the top 3 have a lot of money. They've got a lot of backing, a lot of financial backing, and they are obviously full-time as well, so it makes it very difficult. But yeah, I mean, it's looking very difficult. You know, they're 14 points behind Dundee United, who are sitting second bottom. Kind of middle of the league, Hearts sitting 4th, Hibs sitting 5th, Hearts above Hibs, surprise, surprise. Motherwell sitting 6th, Partick sitting 7th, Spartans 8th, Aberdeen 9th, Hamilton 10th. So yeah, the top of the SWPL is tight between Glasgow City, Celtic and Rangers, but after that, nothing much in it, to be honest. Azulino, technically Aberdeen split though from 2 seasons running recently. Rangers finished 3rd twice. Yeah, I mean, I just think Aberdeen for me are, and I've said before, they're a big club. They're a big team. They should be doing better, and that's where they've got to get this next appointment right for me. I don't know who'll get the Aberdeen job. I honestly don't. I think it's a big job for anybody to get, and that's where I think this is going to be right. And I did kind of, you know, when you're watching Jim Goodwin go off the pitch against Hibs and you're watching Dave Commack's interview, Dave Commack did look very emotional, which is great. That's what you want to see from an owner or a chairman. And you can tell that he was very emotional. But he's got to get this next appointment right. He can't fail again. You can't get this wrong for a 3rd time. Aberdeen fans are very passionate fans. But what I find unbelievable is Aberdeen before the World Cup break were sitting 3rd. They were in a good place. A lot of fans were saying, "Oh, you know, Jim Goodwin's done a lot of good things here." They looked very good. They were scoring goals at home. They couldn't win away from home, but they were scoring goals at home. They come back after World Cup break and they've just completely fallen apart. As a bit of a Schadenfreude for me with them. Nick and Goodwin. 1 year later, he's sacked and sitting around above them in the table. It's a fair point, to be honest. I just think, you know, Jim Goodwin for me should have been a good appointment. He should have been the right appointment for me, and I thought he was at the time, but it didn't work. And I think a lot of those players, I've said earlier on, a lot of those players for me down tools under Goodwin, and that is never what you want to see from a club. You don't want to see players down the tools. That is not good enough. And I think if any of the Aberdeen players can go home and look at themselves in the mirror and say, "Do you know what? I've given my best here for Jim Goodwin," then they're lying. They didn't. But I think for Aberdeen to have such a spectacular drop-off was incredible. You know, that the defeats to Hearts and Hibs, you know, was awful. But that defeat to Darvel, I watched the game and I didn't see any energy. I didn't see any desire. I didn't see any passion. I didn't see players willing to put a tackle in against a junior side. You know, Darvel were great. I said this before, Darvel were outstanding. But for Aberdeen to lose that game was a huge blow. They should have a cup game next week at home to Falkirk. Instead, they're out the cup while Darvel play Falkirk, and I hope Darvel win that game. I would love Darvel to go further in this cup. Imagine if they beat Falkirk. I said this on Friday, I think, actually. Imagine if Darvel beat Falkirk and then get drawn against Celtic or Rangers. Incredible. Absolutely fantastic. And we are hoping to get the Darvel manager, Mick Kennedy, on here to get his thoughts about, you know, the success for Darvel, because it is incredible. I will give you a rundown of the Scottish Cup games next week, if I can find them. So Friday night, I know this already. It is Hamilton against Hearts. We also have, if I can bring the fixtures up here. Actually, I'm going to do this way because it'll be easier if I do it this way. So let me just check the fixtures for the Scottish Cup. So the Scottish Cup next week we have, right here we go. So next week we have the 3 o'clock games are Ayr United against Elgin, Dundee United against Kilmarnock, Livingston against Inverness, Raith Rovers against Motherwell, and on the 5:30 kickoff it's Celtic against St Mirren. I'm going to make predictions now. I know we'll talk about this next week, but I've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to go for it anyway. So, Ayr United against Elgin. I'm going to go 3-0 to Ayr United for that one. Dundee United Kilmarnock's an interesting one. You know, two Premier League teams, but two very different teams. Kilmarnock kept winning away from home. I said earlier on, I thought Dundee United were good against Hearts. They lost the game because they went down to 10 men. I've been impressed with Liam Fox. I think he's done a good job for United. So I think United will win that. I'm going to go 2-0 United for that. 2-0 Dundee United. Livingston Inverness. Again, tough game to predict because Inverness are, for me, in name especially, they're a Premier League club. I think they should be in the Premier League. They'll be wanting to test themselves against Livingston and say, you know what, we should be where you are. So I think that's a difficult game for me. I think Livingston with home advantage, though, probably should win that game. I'm going to go 3-1 Livingston. And again, who I spoke about earlier on, Joel Newbley for me has been such a good player for Livingston. He'll cause Inverness a lot of problems. So yeah, I'm going to go 3-1 Livingston. Livingston against Inverness. Wraith against Motherwell. Do you know what? I'm going to go for a Wraith win here. Because Motherwell, for me, as I've said earlier on, have offered very little. And I think this is a potential banana skin. This is a big game for Stevie Hamill. If they lose this game, I think he could be out the door, which might seem harsh. Because Hamill's a really good guy, likeable guy. He's a Motherwell legend through and through. But I genuinely think Wraith Rovers at home, I think they'll win this game. I'm going to go 2-1 to Wraith Rovers on this. This is my prediction for a cup shock. Maybe it wouldn't be a cup shock given the way that Motherwell are playing. So I'm going to go 2-1 to Wraith Rovers. Celtic St Mirren. St Mirren have been very good, but it's at Celtic Park. If this was at the Smicer Stadium, maybe you could think that they might have a chance, but I just think at Celtic Park, I have to say Celtic. I think Celtic win this game by probably 3-0. I'm going for that game. Celtic 3, St Mirren 0. On the Sunday, the Scottish Cup. Is it just one or two games on the Sunday? I think it might just be one. One game on the Sunday. Rangers Partick Thistle, that's at 4 o'clock. Again, you've got to fancy the Rangers to win this game. They could probably make a few changes and win this game comfortably. Partick Thistle, nothing to lose. You know, Partick Thistle away for home at Ibrox, they get a decent pay out of that. Azulino, I was gutted when that draw came out for St Mirren. Yeah, I think pretty much most St Mirren fans would be, to be honest. So last thing you want to go to Celtic Park for a cup game, because when you're not Celtic Rangers, when you're a St Mirren, when you're a Motherwell, when you're a Hearts, you want to avoid Celtic Rangers in the draw to try and get as far as you can. So for Celtic, for St Mirren to get Celtic at Celtic Park, massive, massive disappointment in that. And I feel sorry for St Mirren because I think your cup run's going to come to an end, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, again, it's a free hit for St Mirren. You're not expected to win that game, so why not go and have a go? Celtic, yes, they are a very good side. I'd imagine that Celtic probably will make 3 or 4 changes to that side, but as I said earlier on, Celtic are such a strong side, it's not going to make any difference. They can make 4 or 5 changes and still be strong. But yeah, you have to think that Celtic win this game quite comfortably, but there's nothing for St Mirren to lose. I think for me, if I was a St Mirren fan, yes, a cup run's great, but for me, I want to try and finish as high as I can in the league. I want to try and finish in that top 6 and then try and get higher. So that for me is where you want to try and be. A cup run's great, but you know what? It'll come to an end next week. Rangers Partick Thistle, yeah, I think it's a great payday for Partick Thistle. The game's on TV, I believe, as well. I don't understand why. Why would you show that? But yeah, again, you've got to imagine that that'll be a comfortable victory for Rangers. I'm going to go 4-0 Rangers. Sorry to any Partick Thistle fans that are watching this, but I think it'll be a very comfortable Rangers victory. So that kind of wraps that up as well. The only shock I can really see is Wraith Rovers beating Motherwell, but is that really a cup shock? Probably not. And I will talk about it. Hamilton against Hearts next week on the Friday night. We'll talk about that game again next week when we're on air. But I have to fancy Hearts to win that game. We're playing bottom of the league. The decent form teams stand a chance against the Old Firm at home. And I also think Hampden, both Old Firm teams have got my clues there, I think. Yeah, and again, I'll talk quickly about the Hearts-Hamilton game next week. I do think the Hearts will win that game. It could be difficult on that plastic pitch. Hamilton bottom of the league. You've got to imagine the Hearts will win that game, but we are going without Lawrence Shankland, who's suspended after getting 2 yellow cards against Hibs in the previous round, which is an absolute disgrace for both of them. But we've got more than enough. Stephen Humphries will come back in. I think Yutaro Oda might start. I think Garan Kwon might start, who looked impressive when he came off the bench yesterday. So we've got more than enough quality to win that game. And I would like to think we'll win that game comfortably. But in these games, you never know. It's cup games. You know, Hamilton have nothing to lose. It's a difficult game, but I'm going to say I think we'll concede. But I'm going to go 3-1 Hearts for that game. Sticking to 3-1 Hearts, I've got my last 2 predictions right, so I'm going to go 3-1 Hearts. And actually, Angelino talks about Hampden here. I want to talk about this for a few minutes as well. Now, again, we did the 2 Viaplay Cup semi-finals. We were on air after both those games. The state of that Hampden pitch for a national stadium is an absolute disgrace. They need to do something about that because that park was cutting up so badly and there's no excuse for it. There's no reason for it. Darvel, a junior side, have a better pitch than our national stadium. I've seen better pitches on a Sunday league than I saw at Hampden Park for those 2 games. They've got to sort that out because you're going into that Viaplay Cup final, Celtic Rangers, in a couple of weeks' time, and you're playing on an absolute quagmire of a pitch that cuts up so badly. I think it's an embarrassment for the Hampden pitch. I hope they get that sorted out. I don't know if they will before the final, probably not. But it's an embarrassment. It really is for a national pitch to be cutting up that badly with a bit of wind and a bit of rain. I'm sorry, it's shocking. And I do think that, again, Hearts have been in the last 3 at the last 4 cup finals, but never won them. I think it's a great opportunity for somebody outside of Celtic Rangers to win a cup this season. Again, Aberdeen could have been that team, but they're out. I don't know who else is going to do it. Hearts potentially, if we can avoid the Old Firm, if we can get past Hamilton. I think it's a luck of the draw. You know, when you're in a Scottish Cup, it's a luck of the draw. You always want a home draw, but you want to try and avoid the Old Firm as much as you can. So yeah, I mean, the Scottish Cup, I've said this before, I love Scottish Cup weekend. It's been a staple for me for all through my years. You know, taking my first Scottish Cup from my father and then my brother and that took me. You know, the Scottish Cup means a lot. And obviously when Hearts won it in 1998, having got beat 5-1 in 1996, it was incredible. You know, such a buzz. And I love Scottish Cup weekends. They're brilliant. And I remember years ago, they used to start the programme at like 12:30 and they would do the whole build-up. And it was amazing. And then you would obviously have the game and you'd have the aftermatch as well. Now it tends to be like an hour build-up. I wish they would bring that back, you know, do the whole Scottish Cup build-up like through the whole day. But yeah, Scottish Cup weekends are great. Next weekend, hopefully, there'll be a lot of decent games on. Hopefully a lot of decent performances. And, you know, Ayr United, for them, playing Elgin at home, what a chance they've got to get to the next round of the Cup as well. They've got to fancy their chances there. But for me, you know, I think it will be Celtic, Rangers, Hearts will be the winners next week, I'd imagine. But listen, it's the cup football, you never know. People can have an off day. So I am now down to my last minute or so. I have managed to, I don't know how, do 2 hours myself again. Again, as I always say, thank you to everybody that's watched me. Thank you to everyone that's commented, especially Azalino. Never seen you before, but hope you come back again, pal. It's been great to see you. We will be back on Friday next week from our normal time of 5 until 7. Hopefully Michael McEwen is back next week because doing this on your own is an absolute nightmare. But again, I've really enjoyed doing this and talking absolute nonsense for the last 2 hours. And again, I just want to say, Duan van der Merwe, absolute legend. What a try that was yesterday. I'm going to go and watch that again along with Stephen Humphries Go for Hearts. But yeah, thank you to everybody that's commented. Thank you to everybody that's watched me again. Keep in touch with everything that's going on the locker room, on our locker room indie page. We are back next Friday from 5 o'clock until 7. And then the Sunday show again next week. We were on from 3 till 5. I've been Graham Duffy. Thank you for joining me. And I shall see you again on Friday. Bye-bye.